Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. No, I didn't lose a bet. No, I didn't lose my mind. It wasn't a Britney Spears moment. I went to go shave my head normally, and I can't find the razor that I normally do it with, or at least the size, the clippers, the plastic guard. I couldn't find the right size. I must have thrown it out by accident. So I started with like a 12 millimeter, and I'm like, this isn't working. Let's see what happens if I just go down to a 0. So I got this, and actually, dude, it is so hot. This feels so good. You have no idea. I didn't want to go all the way like clean and waxed or anything, but oh, this feels so good. Oh, it's so much freedom from the heat here in California. Oh, so I'm happy with it overall. There's a few spots that are messed up. I can see it in the camera right now. I think there's a few spots right here that look a little like they could use a little shaping up. But hello, this is Summer Me, and by the end of the summer, it'll have grown back. So let's see how far this can all get when we are waiting for Endwalker. Anyway, with that, I'm sure I've got some questions to answer, so let's get to the Q&A. Of course, thank you to our sponsors over on Patreon for supporting. Just hopefully you guys, if you enjoy the content, you use it, because it's all it's there for. It doesn't have any sort of unique anything at all. It just supports the YouTube channel. So if you enjoy the stuff, then that's there. But if not, just watch the YouTube content. It's all free. Enjoy it. I get ad revenue. You watch it, I get paid. It's a perfect way of doing things. Also, thank you to our patrons of Darkness, Khuja, Cross on Jenova, and Kurenai Oni for going above and beyond. Thank you to all of our patrons, and of course, thank you to those of you who tune in every week, and those of you who ask questions. And let's see if we have any good ones this week. All right, so question number 1, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Happy. Hi, I hope you're all right. Well, people are going to think I've lost my mind when they see this, but I promise you I am doing A-okay. Do you plan to do an introduction video about your new cat? Yeah, so for anyone who did miss the announcement, I do have a new cat. Her name is Ivy, and she's still largely getting acclimated. She's a lot more comfortable than she was a few weeks ago, but she's still kind of in that phase where she kind of only hangs around the room where we first introduced her to the house, and she like ventures out a little bit, but she's still kind of afraid to go too far. Fortunately, her and Aloha seem to be getting along. The closest thing we had to any sort of kerfuffle between them was early on. He tried to lick her face, and she didn't like that because she's like, I don't know you like that. But since then, they've been fine. They watch each other play. Like, they both like different toys, so one watches, Ivy watches me play with Aloha. Aloha watches me play with Ivy. And we feed them in separate locations, and other than when she gets her dry food in the morning that we're trying to wean her off of, which Aloha wants so desperately, they seem to be doing okay so far. So hopefully it continues to develop like that, and I can do an introduction video sometime during the summer. All right, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Yeah, though, and hope your day is good. It's doing fantastically. Thank you for asking. I'm just going to get to the point. Why do people make so many videos reacting or about WoW players coming to 14? Because whenever I look up the game, it feels like that's all I see. What's funny? I actually recorded a video on this yesterday, and I'm probably going to re-record it today because I was kind of like really tired when I did it. And honestly, I don't know. There's this. I really can't find the words for it. All I know is, I'll give you the TLDR of the video I'll be releasing on it, is that I don't understand the fascination. For me, I don't care what the background anyone comes from another game that they play, or the opinions that they form on the game that I play. I know that no matter whether I agree or disagree with them, that we'll continue to coexist as people, and we're not any worse off as people for either sharing. And people having a fascination in the game when they previously didn't give it a shot or haven't given it a shot in a while, I think that's really cool. So, it's just, I guess, it's just a topic to talk about. So that's really it. It's just news. We got 6 months till Endwalker comes out. Gotta make news out of something, right? So I will probably even be releasing a video like that, probably the same day as you guys see this. Hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. Hey, Habs, hope you are doing well. Hope the same for you. Long-time watcher, first-time asker, just a quick question. Cool. You mentioned your first Final Fantasy was 8, but that's not one of your favorites. So question, what are your top 5 favorites and least favorites? Well, that's... You guys asked me for 10 games? You call it a short question? I'll give you a few. Top 3 is easily 6, 10, and Zodiac Age. 7 Remake kind of squeaks its way in, but because it's only part 1, I'm always hesitant to really give it that honorary, top 3 spot, I suppose. And then for the bottom, just 2 and 3. 2 and 3, just 3 and then 2, actually, because I definitely dislike 3 more than 2. But the rest of it's kind of just sprinkled throughout the middle. Like, some of the fan favorites, like 4 and 5, are closer to the top. Some of the Other fan favorites like 7 and 8 are middle to bottom. 9 is pretty close to the bottom for me between the combat system. I know way too much about it. It just really hurts my perspective on the game. I don't really like any of the characters. The art style for me isn't super appealing either. It's just, there's a lot of things about 9 I'm not a super big fan of. So, otherwise, if that's the best I can do, because if I go any further, it's going to be a long answer for what you've called a very short question. Hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. You doing? Hello to you too. At least they asked if I was doing all right, and they're doing all right. You're an app watcher, first-time commenter. Welcome. I saw another question below me, or maybe above now, that asks about differentiating healers when Sage come out. Since we have Scholar and Sage as shield healers, whereas Astro and White Mage will be hot-based healers, how do you foresee them differentiating the two inside each category further? So this is something I say about Final Fantasy XIV in general. It's not even specific to the healers, but Final Fantasy XIV is very much about making sure jobs have as close to the same function as possible, and it being about how they actually access that power. A good example is Horoscope. I mean, Horoscope is just a delayed AoE heal, but it can be strengthened by casting another AoE heal. That alone differentiates it from pretty much the other healers, like right off the bat. But at the end of the day, it is just another way to heal the group. You know, it's achieving the same function. Astro has its cards for buffing allies, giving them damage, so their own personal damage is a good bit lower. But that access of power, those cards, is drastically different from the other jobs. Scholar has their fairy gauge that is casting abilities independent of the abilities they cast themselves. And that's balanced out versus the abilities that Scholar has access to directly without having to worry about ghosting or pet delays or anything like that. White Mage, very direct. It's a lot of offensive spells, and its lilies give it good mobility when they need to actually cast a heal, but they have otherwise pretty underwhelming instant cast options, you know, with Dia and Regen, and I guess that's really it if you're looking at your GCDs other than your lilies. So, but even though I've just given you a bunch of things that differentiate the healers, most people would argue that they could still all achieve a very similar goal, and that is to protect the group. And that's true across all of them. Sage, it's going to be about how this augment function actually ends up working. It's probably going to feel, in my opinion, a lot like Etherflow, but it's still going to have something flavor-wise that is just slightly different from what we've come to expect or what we know already in the game. But that's about it. It's always differentiating by access to the power, not actually what they achieve. They do that sometimes, but that's definitely the less important difference to establish than how they actually use their skills. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Thanks for continuing to work on another no hello. What happened to the manners in my comment section, guys? Come on now. But at least you said thank you for continuing your work on Stay the Realm. Thank you for watching. Question, what are the types of mechanics you enjoy the most? I can offer you 2 rough categories, individual responsibility and group coordination. That's very, very broad to offer those two, because a lot of the time, anything that does require group coordination is just as much individual responsibility, whereas some abilities, some mechanics have individual responsibility, but they won't affect the group if you screw them up. So it's kind of like the square and the rectangle, where group coordination requires individual responsibility, but individual responsibility doesn't always require group coordination. And so for me, it really comes down to mechanics that are simple to read but difficult to execute. If you can't figure out what's happening on the screen, that's usually a sign that something's maybe a little bit too cluttered. Light Rampant is a great example of that. I think fundamentally, it's pretty simple to understand. But when something goes wrong, the feedback that you get from something going wrong is just explosions and this obnoxious sound, like just it happening 3, 4, 5 times, and the screen goes black and it's all over. There's little room to understand what happened, really fix it, unless people can identify the mistake they made themselves. So for me, it's less about a specific type of mechanic and more about making sure the mechanic has clear visuals, but also still provides a challenge and good feedback if you were to fail, and even good feedback if you were to succeed it. So that's I guess not really exactly what you asked, but that's kind of what comes to mind when I read that question. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello, see? Hello. How easy was that? How you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. Long-time listener, first-time asker. I do the same thing. Every time I type something that ends in ER, for some reason write ED. Things that end in ED, I end them in ER. I don't understand why I do it either. My apologies if this has been asked before. Listen, I'm sure everything I've answered here has been asked before in some capacity. That's fine. I've been doing a lot of Palace of the Dead Heaven on High lately, and an annoying feature keeps coming up, and I can't really understand why, and maybe you can enlighten me. Well, if it's Palace of the Dead Heaven on High, so excited to talk about it. Why does Tomahawk and other... Oh, this has nothing to do with Palace of the Dead. And other tank actions only 15 yalms when healers and others are 25 yalms. I'm the tank and I want to pull, but no, my darling friends pull for me, and I have to try to gather them up before the dodos get eaten. So I find it annoying in hell as dungeons. Well, the general rule of thumb is that a tank should be there, it should be in the front anyway, so they should be in those 15 yalms before the other people are casting from their 25 yalms. Of course, that's not reality, and so the reality of the situation is there is no good reason. That's just how it is. I will say that as much as it's generally not preferred in terms of, I guess, a regular thing to do, pulling with provokes strictly for the distance is okay as long as you're willing to follow it up with something, just to make sure you get that initial tap on a group of enemies so that they come over to you and then you can, AoE them or whatever it is you got to do. But that it's still not supposed to be the, the big thing that you pull with, because it generates one enmity. I think it actually generates more than that now, but it generates barely any enmity, and you have to do the same things that you would normally do in a pull anyway after that. So, but the real answer is, I don't think there is a good answer. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello, Haps. Hello! And I'll say hello to my wonderful cats who are not in here right now. My question, I'm having trouble deciding what job to play through the story of Endwalker. Samurai is my main, but I get the feeling a lot of people will be playing Reaper, which might make queue times really rough. Do you consider queue times a new classes when deciding what to level first? This is a terrible question specifically for somebody like me. Because what I do is, I live stream the whole thing, and I look at my Twitch chat and I go, hey, anyone want a queue? So I kind of am uniquely positioned in that I don't have to consider things like this most of the time. Occasionally, but most of the time I don't. So I don't make my decisions based on that. But honestly, there's always so many people in general that I'm usually kind of surprised. It really depends on what time of day you're playing. And while I can't guarantee there'll be good queue times, like, 2-3 minutes, generally from 80 to 90. Wait, I just realized. You have trusts. What am I even talking about? You have trusts for all the dungeons. It's the trials you have to worry about. And honestly, I don't think that's going to be that bad of a queue time. So do whatever, knock yourself out. I think it'll be fine. So before I even take this question, the question right above it is, why did you choose California, move to Texas? I'm going to say this very upfront. You don't just choose necessarily to move to a location. Sometimes you do it because of a specific circumstance. My girlfriend lives in California. Her job is in California. She's moved around California for her jobs, and that's where I am. I can't just go to Texas. I don't just pack everything up and say, where do I want to go today? I never understand when people say that when people live in a location. You can't just relocate because you want, and usually don't relocate just because you want. There's usually a reason behind it, so it's weird when people say things like that. I wanted to address it because I didn't want to save it for the lightning round, because I was just like, what? Why do people say things like that? Why don't people think before they ask questions? Hashtag Mr. Every Mondays. Hi, Mr. Happy. Hope you had a good week and are doing well. Oh, I did. It was an excellent week. Thank you, and I hope the same for you. Endwalker will be the first time I've ever played an expansion at release. Is material likely to be worth more now than it is? No. So here's what's going to happen. Combat materia, first of all, we don't know what's going to happen with materia with the stat squish. It's very likely materia gets trimmed, so there's less of it. So we really don't know what to expect on that front. So until they confirm that, my answer, take it with a grain of salt, because it may not apply at all. So combat materia is likely to be worth absolutely nothing. I highly recommend using it to meld in any gear you pick up along the way, as long as it's a gear upgrade, like from 85 to 90, if you're in BIS-ish gear before going into the expansion. However, the best play is normally to transmute combat materia in hopes of getting crafting and gathering materia, because historically, crafting and gathering materia at all ranks does very well, because people are very exact about their overmelds on that. So you can take the current grade 7 and grade 8s, and odds are they're going to be worth a good chunk of money when the expansion itself comes around. Now, you will, of course, be doing the hunt for combat materia. Let's say we get, let's say we get 9s and 10s. Let's just forego the possibility of them trimming it down and us going down to a lower number. Let's just say we're going to get 9s and 10s. Those are worth a lot early on. All the new players want them. All the hardcore players want them. People are stocking up for the first raid tier. People are upgrading gear frequently, and maybe they're not getting all the materia back when they retrieve it. So it's worth a lot to hunt early on. I usually make tens of millions of gil hunting in the first couple of weeks. So highly, highly advisable. How do you think they'll handle trusts in Endwalker? Exactly the same as they are now. You're not going to need to level them, and it wouldn't matter even if you did need to level them, because you can just set them to story mode. Now, if you didn't level them to 80 before, odds are it's just a whole new set of trusts regardless, because Estinian is obviously not going to start at level 70. He's going to have to start at 81, or I'm sorry, yeah, at 81, where the rest of them would start anyway. And actually, that's another thing. There's no way to get I guess technically there would be a way to get them from 80 to 81 doing Gulg, but I doubt that's the answer. They're probably just all going to start at 81. And not to mention, no matter what, you'll have the story mode version of it anyway, so I don't think it'll matter too much. All right, hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. No hellos! What's wrong with you people today? Do you think we could ever just see an expansion that is a remake of A Realm Reborn? No. No. Because here's the thing. Imagine you get an expansion. It's the only thing you're going to get for 2 years. And it's just stuff you've already done. And no, it wouldn't be like Cataclysm, because Final Fantasy XIV story takes place on a linear cycle, meaning you do event A to get to event B to get to event C. The world doesn't just evolve around you like it does with World of Warcraft. So, no, it would be a complete waste of an expansion. Now, what is able to be done is likely just an engine upgrade, where things from A Realm Reborn are updated and given new life. However, they would still probably build a lot of the world on the base line that is what we have now. It'd be a lot about porting it to the new engine so it could be improved visually and UI updates could be done. But also, PS3 limitations isn't what necessarily led to the zones being the way that they are. A lot of it is just trying to... Well, here's the thing. People think the PS3's limitations were not what they are. PS3 had a big issue with rendering objects. It wasn't necessarily about loading the zones. That wasn't done because of the PS3. That was done because it was an easier way of actually developing the game and getting it done. Cutting out all that dead space, making sure they had more direct landmarks to work with, map sizes that made sense for the number of events that were taking place on them. It wasn't a PS3 limitation. That's why when Heavensward came around, we had the big zones, and we still had the PS3 version. So, just to level that there. But as for other things like updating character creator, even removing the class system likely wouldn't happen because they'd still be using the code that's built on the class system. And also, remaking A Realm Reborn isn't the same as completely redoing the class system. That's not A Realm Reborn issue. That is a deep-seated code, start over from scratch. Everything needs to be remade, not A Realm Reborn. So you can't just cherry pick A Realm Reborn in this case and be like, we'll just remake that. No. The whole thing has to be redone on a new engine from scratch. And I say from scratch. It has to be redone on a new engine, and a lot of the old code would be ported over, which means you'd still likely have some technical limitations that might be easier to overcome on the newer version. So this is a huge no in terms of strictly what you've asked. But an engine update at some point, probably. All right, I'm not going to lie. This wasn't a super great week for Q&A. A lot of stuff is either repeats of stuff I've already been answering for weeks, or questions that are impossible to answer. Here, this is officially the lightning round. We'll let's see. What are we going through right here? That's the introduction video. Something about Midas. I guess Cid's father having a beard, not having one anymore. I mean, we've never seen him in that exact area, so maybe he just didn't have one at the time. I don't know. I don't know anything other than that. Then there was one, enemy AoEs in all areas changed to look like the Shadowbringers ones with the raised lightings. I mean, not all of them, I can promise you that, but I mean, yeah, they usually universally change them at some point, and I didn't even notice that the old ones looked any different. They've looked the same to me since Shadowbringers came out, so I guess I'll just say yeah. Then there was one about what I think of screenshot communities, cosmetic mods, custom poses. There's some weird shit out there. All right, so I just avoid it altogether, but there are some genuinely good people who just do some fun things with that. Those people keep enjoying themselves. The weird people who got like Lalafels with giant tits, and I had somebody on my Twitter comment and say that I was a bane to the Final Fantasy XIV community and that I should just disappear. And I clicked on their profile and it was just Lalafels with giant tits modded on. I'm like, and that was the day I realized that hilariously bad takes on the internet about individuals and toxicity, and usually come from A, toxic individuals, and B, toxic individuals who have a public addiction to hentai and they don't care who knows about it. So that was a weird day, and as long as I don't run into those kind of cosmetic mod types of people, it's fine. And all the other ones, you guys are cool. But otherwise I don't engage with it in any way. There was somebody asking, like, why Endwalker seems to have so many Final Fantasy IV themes. It's because they want to. That's it. They don't need a reason. They just have to want to do it. And you know what? I mean, we're also getting some Final Fantasy X themes. We saw Anima, we saw the Magi Sisters, which are also a Final Fantasy IV theme, but there's some overlap there, and I do like that. Then there's the WoW video question. What are your thoughts on the new jobs and their themes? I don't know. We've seen 60 seconds and a screenshot or two. It's not really enough to form an actual opinion about them, and we won't learn anything about them until October. So I got nothing, because there's really nothing to talk about at this point. There was a bunch of people, at least 2 or 3 people, that asked if I thought Reaper was going to be a selfish DPS like Samurai or more utility-driven like Dragoon. There's no way of knowing. That kind of answer isn't educated. There's literally nothing to base it off of. So there's no way for me to provide an informed opinion, because there's no information with which to inform myself. So I can't answer that question. What I want also doesn't matter, because I probably won't main it. I'll level it like I do everything else, but what I want is irrelevant. I just want it to be fun at the end of the day. Somebody was asking if we'd still have Firmament turn-ins. They confirmed this when you actually do the quests for the current Ishgard. If you have done them, they tell you that even though it's rebuilt, that they'll continue to accept donations, so that's likely never going anywhere. Then there was the top 5, bottom 5 question. There was the separation between the healers and the way that they play. What mechanic you like best. Do you think they would ever put concept art in the game to view or unlock? No. They make too much money selling books and shit on it. No way. Maybe occasionally, like as part of like credit scenes and stuff, but that's about it. There's another one. Reaper have more personal DPS than Sam. There's literally no way to make that. There's no way to make an opinion about that. There just isn't. That's the Tomahawk question. What's this? This looks something. Oh, how do the Charlene seem to know so much? That's what we're gonna find out in Endwalker. Who knows? They literally got phallic pouring water out of the jug thing that she's carrying, and she's the goddess of knowledge. So that's we don't know. That's what we're gonna find out. I didn't even see this question. I actually somehow missed this one altogether. What's it called? So I'm melding. I don't understand how to tell what the thresholds are. So specifically with skill speed, every X amount of skill speed at any given level cap gives you 0.01 off the GCD. Now at that point, it's how many GCDs can you do in between a burst window. So it's basically people figure out that by lining up certain amounts of skill speed or spell speed will allow you to better align with buffs at a 90-second mark, the 2-minute mark, the 3-minute mark, etc., etc. And that just comes down to math. And I guess technically practice with the job and the skill speed to see if it works out in a more practical sense. So it starts with a little bit of, I guess, vacuum math of what would be ideal in a 100% uptime scenario, and then it's put against actual fight design to see what is actually the best way to go about it. So, and then also with things like testing crit chance and direct hit chance, that's just people run thousands and thousands and thousands of tests, and then they combine and they have, all the normal statistics that you would see. A lot of the time that information is done via auto attack. Sometimes people use a very weak skill to do it, something with a really flat potency amount that's easy to calculate without a lot of RNG. Comparing normal hits, direct hits, crit hits, and at different levels by unequipping stuff and re-equipping stuff and changing their melt. Those people do insane amounts of work to figure it out. But it's all statistical analysis at the end of the day. I actually didn't see that. I would have thrown that in the non-lightning round if I had seen it. There's the what should I main question. There's the why'd you choose California question, which is still a weird one. There's the materia question. What do you want for dinner? I'm making, I was going to make an oven roasted salmon, just salt, pepper, roast it in the oven. And then I was going to make a creamy dill sauce with some horseradish mustard, some sour cream, some fresh dill, and then I was going to put, some salt, some pepper, some fresh garlic in there, and there's 1 or 2 other things I bought. Oh, lemon zest and a little bit of lemon juice in there. That's going to be a good time. That's what's for dinner. And then this was another, what are your thoughts on... I can't do, what are your thoughts on this? Or so, I need information. Until I have information on Sage Reaper or any of the job changes, it feels reckless to tell people that, this is how it'll be, or this is how I think it'll be, because it's just easy for people to say, I heard somewhere that that guy said it. And it's like, no. I didn't say anything. I said maybe, or probably, or I wouldn't be surprised if. But I don't like talking about jobs that we don't know anything about, because there's nothing to base any of my information on. I'm really grounded in what information we actually have. And speculation sometimes is fun, but sometimes it just gets a little too out of hand. And so a lot of the time you'll see me avoid questions like that. What do you think they would do for this healer or that healer? It's a tough question to answer. So it's just a tough question for me to take. That's the remake of Realm Reborn question. What do you think about patch minimum item level jumps for MSQ? I must have missed this one too, that are not taken care of by the MSQ. Getting gear in Final Fantasy XIV is so easy with tomestones that I see it as a non-issue. I think they could do a better job of communicating to the player that they're going to need more item level ahead of when they actually need it instead of it being sprung on you all at once. But I think the MSQ doesn't necessarily need to hand you everything, especially when we're talking about in the most recent expansion itself, where they want you to go out and engage with the world, the dungeons, and try out the 8-man normal modes and try out the 24-man alliance raids and all that stuff. Earn tomestones, buy gear from vendors. They want to make sure you're trying to engage with those systems instead of getting the max level, finishing the MSQ, and having engaged with none of it. So I think it's a reasonable concern to have. I totally get where you're coming from, but from my point of view, that little bit of encouragement to engage in another activity to get to the point you need to be at is healthier overall for the game than just handing everyone everything from the most recent MSQ quests. I know. Quests. So that's how I'm going to approach that one. Have they discussed the plan for skills in the expansion? They trimmed some, they add some. We've had roughly about the same amount of skills for the past 2 expansions now. Heaven's Word is really where it got bad. And I know some of you might be thinking, oh, dude, Paladin's pretty bad right now. And I'm like, yeah, Paladin's probably the worst job in terms of keybinds. One of the worst at the very least. But you should have seen Heaven's Word for pretty much every other job because it was absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, they'll just do that again. That's why I didn't take that question the first time. There was another one here about them reworking Summoner Scholar based on the interview I did. I've answered that a bunch of times, and it's just, we don't know. But after the Reaper comment about how it's not like Summoner Scholar, a lot of people thought, oh, Reaper is just proof they're going to do what Happy said about Summoner Scholar. No, I'm less confident in that now because I've seen Reaper. So I don't know what they're doing, whatever it is, though. We'll find out probably in October. Do you think Gosetsu will return? I think it'd be cool. I like Gosetsu, but I don't feel like they need to shoehorn him in at the very least. So that's the thing. Do you think Reaper will have the same Meltage Dragoon? Again, we don't know anything about its skills. If we had a baseline for what their skills do, I could maybe answer this question. We don't, though. So I can't. It just would be reckless. And it would be uninformed. Like, I'd just look dumb months down the line because there's nothing about it that is based on anything. Let's see. What else do we have here? Do you think they'll ever revamp the early level in terms of brand new starting zone up to 15 to 50? No. This, like, again, the story takes place in a linear fashion. They're not going to go back and completely change Realm Reborn from what it was. So, no. But what I do think they should do is they should add they should take a few of our instant skills that we get from higher levels and put them at the lower levels. Things like Elixir Field or... Elixir Field is a good example. Let's stop there before I have to try and think of too many examples. But yeah, off global cooldown damaging skills earlier for more jobs. I also think they should finish the 3-part combo chain for jobs a little sooner as well. So move things like Full Thrust to be an earlier level. Monk gets Snap Punch fairly early on. I think that's a good example of what they could do with other jobs. And I think things like that could drastically improve the early game experience. And then focus on like the really crazy stuff from like 50 plus. I honestly think Monk is one of the healthiest progressions of jobs that we have from 1 to 50. And then the way it's built on from 50 to 80, I think is quite nice, even if I haven't liked all iterations of it. But I think that's the better approach. I think it's a more reasonable approach as well, because we've already seen them make changes to like job levels. Like Gravity for Astro used to be level 52. You get synced into a level 50 dungeon, you got no AoE. What did they do? They made it level 45, and now they do. They could still be earlier, but at least they have it before level 50 now. There was someone with 2 Blue Mage questions also. Like, will we get more skills for them before Endwalker? No, they're done with Blue Mage before Endwalker. There's no more content updates. Those 20 spells are specifically from level 70 to 80 content. So you're not just asking if they can release 20 spells, you're also asking if they can add 10 levels to it, which means they have to add Mass Carnival, which means they have to add achievements for doing stuff like for Eden, and also means Blue Mage would be at max level cap, which is never going to happen. So no, but they're done with updates other than like seasonal events regardless of this question, but specifically with Blue Mage, no, because it would require a max level increase and they're not going to let it be the same max level as we are. Will they fix Summoner and add summons to attacks instead of having some pets? First of all, that's subjective whether or not that's fixing Summoner. Second of all, we don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Will you make more MSQ overview videos? I do have something planned. Not in the way that you think, though. So bear that in mind. Do you miss the tri-state area? No. Somebody answered this one in the comment section. Let's see what else. Yeah, and then there's just a ton of comments say, Kitty, hey, hi, hello, Kitty, aloha, morning. Which, by the way, hello and good morning, and any of those things to all those people who I don't address because they don't have a hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays in there. Did somebody ask a question? I could have swore I saw someone ask a question and somebody told them to... Oh, they would have added it anyway, I guess, yeah. I remember seeing one when I was scrolling through. Someone said, you should add the hashtag Mr. Happy Monday or it won't get answered. I'm pretty good about answering non-Mondays with Mr. Happy ones. I just read through them in the lightning rounds instead of anywhere else. So yeah, that's going to be it for this week's episode. There was just so many questions that I really couldn't approach in many ways at all. So I apologize if this one feels a little lazy, but I gave my reasoning. So I hope that's cool. Maybe, I hope. Let me know in the comment section, okay? With that, thank you for watching this week's episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. Be sure to ask a question in the comment section of the video below. And I've given you some guidelines of things that are really tough for me to answer. So maybe next week we'll have some different questions. So I guess I'll just have to wait and see. But anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see all of you in the next week's Q&A. And until next time, take care.